Welcome back to the channel. This will be the best wildcard team for Gameweek 11. We just hit 37k on YouTube, and it's all thanks to your support. We did so in the UCL Fantasy Deadline stream on Tuesday, and after the international break, the Champions League content will return with Matchday 5 videos and live streams like the best Limitless and wildcard squads, my team selection, and also answering all your questions in those very hectic deadline streams. The same goes for FPL, of course. I did a transfer this video recently. There is this wildcard squad and my team selection coming up very soon. If you want to see a predicted lineups, then let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, and drop a like on this video, subscribe to my channel, and also hit the notification bell so you're always up to date on my content, both FPL and UCL Fantasy, which I'll cover until the end of the season. As for the clean sheet odds for Gameweek 11, you can see them on screen, and there could be some changes which I'll talk about in the deadline stream on Saturday. Wolves are bottom, facing Chelsea away, and they will have a new manager after the dismissal of Vitor Pereira. They have an 11% chance of keeping a clean sheet against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. But Aston Villa are 6th, facing Bournemouth at home with a 31% probability. Nottingham Forest are 5th, facing Leeds at home. West Ham are in the top 4 with a plum fixture on paper against Burnley. Everton are 3rd, and also Chelsea are 2nd with a home fixture facing Wolves at home. And they are the closest to Arsenal, who have been top of the clean sheet odds for the last couple of weeks, and they've kept so many in the last month or so. They went the entire month of October without conceding a single goal, and they followed that up with a 3-0 win in the Champions League against Slavia Prague away. Join my Discord server, the FPL League, and check out my Spotify. All of them can be found in my description, and become a patron or chat member. Fair likes to my videos, prior to comments, amongst my other perks. There's also my Discord, the X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. You can find that very easily by typing Dylan RCM or FPL Dylan. But without further ado, let's jump straight into it. My squad value is 101 million with 0.4 in the bank. I'll start off with the 2 goalkeepers as usual. There are some key changes to the outfield positions compared to previous wildcard squads that I've built, but I think the best time to wildcard is ultimately team dependent. The same goes for any other booster, but Gameweek 12 or 13 looks the most appealing when you look at fixture swings, and also the fact that it happens after the international break where we could get more injuries as well. And I think wildcarding before an international break can be a little bit awkward. That's not to say you can't do it or that you shouldn't, because in some situations it is the right course of action if you have many injuries, suspensions, or you feel you can make multiple upgrades. And let's not forget, everyone gets 5 free transfers in Gameweek 16 because of AFCON. So wildcarding a little bit earlier and giving yourself more space to really bolster this wildcard for the next 4 or 5 game weeks, and then using those 5 free transfers to use a bench boost or set yourself up until the second half of the season, and selling African players like Salah, Mbumo, and Ndai. But let's not forget that Ghana haven't qualified for the African Cup of Nations, so the likes of Kudus and Semenyo will stay with their clubs. That's very important to highlight, and they should be worth keeping in some situations, particularly in the case of Semenyo. I think Kudus is more of a sell at this moment in time, but that could change by the time we get to Gameweek 16. So now it's about the 2 goalkeepers, and I think this option is the very best, not just in this competition, but also across Europe's top 5 leagues. Arsenal have kept the most clean sheets in Europe, and David Raya has been outstanding between the sticks. Whenever he's called upon, he's making some big saves and helping that Gunners defence keep clean sheet after clean sheet. It almost went away against Slavia Prague with a late penalty conceded, but it was overturned, and I'm quite surprised it was even given in the first place. But doubling or tripling up on the Arsenal defence is certainly viable, but I feel like you don't have to do it in terms of it's not necessarily the best time, with Sunderland away next, who are 4th in the Premier League table, and after the international break there are 2 London derbies against Chelsea and Tottenham Hotspur. So that could be quite awkward for the Gunners. We could see a reduction of the clean sheet output. That doesn't mean to say that they're not going to keep clean sheets again, because I feel like they're going to keep many more clean sheets throughout this season, and they're also on course to beating Chelsea's record of 15 goals conceded in the Premier League. That's still going to be very difficult to surpass, but Arsenal are currently hitting that sort of rate, and they're so consistent with 8 consecutive clean sheets, 10 successive wins, and 0 goals conceded in the Champions League. They're so difficult to break down, and only 1 goal conceded all season from open play, and that's from Erling Haaland. The other 2 are from Nick Voltemada from a set piece and an incredible free kick by Dominic Szoboszlai. So David Raya is the best goalkeeper in the game, even though he is 2nd for FPL points scored amongst goalkeepers, only behind Roofs. But if you look at the Black Cats fixtures, they are certainly much worse than Arsenal's on paper. Dubravka would be the backup. It's as simple as that. He's still very template and his price tag remains 4 million, but you don't need to go more expensive and have goalkeeper headaches when it comes to selecting your goalkeeper. So always go for David Raya between the sticks. There might be the odd occasion where you could be tempted to start Dubravka and it can pay off, but I think Raya offers just a far bigger guarantee of clean sheets and also defensive solidity compared to any other option in this position. The same applies for Gabriel Magalhaes, who is top for points scored amongst defenders. He's also the most expensive defender in the game at 6.6 million and such a template option, but it's so difficult to go against him. Even against Slavia Prague, he won a penalty but wasn't awarded the penalty earn points in UCL Fantasy because that's a little bit different to the system deployed by FPL, but Gabriel is capable of that, winning headers, also winning penalties, getting goals and assists from set pieces, scoring DEFCON, and in UCL Fantasy there's a similar system with ball recoveries and he also hits that very consistently, and the clean sheets of course are so impressive for the Gunners, so doubling up is certainly an option. I wouldn't mind a triple up, but I feel like the best time to have done that would have been a couple of weeks ago. So I think going for Raya and Gabriel would be enough, and that leaves a spot open for an Arsenal midfielder who I'm going to talk about very soon. The next defender is Daniel Munoz, who is another very exciting defender to own. He is quite template, you could say, at least maybe not to the same level as Gabriel, but it feels like a lot of FPL managers are bringing in a Crystal Palace defender like Daniel Munoz, so that could feel a little bit less appealing, but I still think Munoz will offer real consistency. He can score DEFCON on the odd occasion, but with him, it's mainly about clean sheets, goals, and assists, and he has that sort of potential more than any other option in this defensive position. And I also think Crystal Palace have good fixtures up until Game Week 17, and after all the announcements that happened recently, it's quite clear that these two teams, Arsenal and Crystal Palace, will not blank in Game Week 17, and the likes of Arsenal and Everton won't double in Game Week 16. The other team involved in that sort of kerfuffle would have been Leeds United, so it looks like with Crystal Palace players, you are quite safe. There will be a very congested December schedule, so tripling up on Crystal Palace could be quite worrying, but I still think it's viable in certain situations with the likes of Lacroix, Gay. I even think Mitchell is decent, but not to the same level as the other defenders, and Richards offers great value, not to mention Ismaila Sarr in the midfield and Jean-Philippe Mateta up front. But I think 2 is the sweet spot with Crystal Palace, and the same goes for Chelsea. I think it's worth having one of their defenders for the next 2 game weeks, and then you can use the money in the bank to upgrade this player to a Virgil van Dijk, for example, and that's Reece James, who faces Wolves at home and Burnley away, but I wouldn't mind going for Virgil van Dijk from the get-go. He does face Man City away in Game Week 11, but then Liverpool have some of the best fixtures of any Premier League team for the next 6 game weeks, so I don't mind going for a Virgil van Dijk after Liverpool kept back-to-back clean sheets against Aston Villa and Real Madrid. Then I'll back on track and we'll see how they can do in that massive clash against Man City over the weekend. But Reece James has a very high ceiling and I could see him getting a big return in one of the next 2 game weeks, but then it's Arsenal in Game Week 13, and by that stage I'd be very keen on selling Reece James and most Chelsea assets. Maybe not in the midfield, and Joao Pedro could be held on to up front, but defensively they can be quite worrying and inconsistent, but Reece James will still be my favourite short-term punt in this position. I'm now going to go for a long-term option who has maybe gone down a notch in the last couple of weeks, but Marcus Senesi can offer defensive contributions on a regular basis. It's Aston Villa away this week, but then some promising fixtures for Bournemouth, who lost 3-1 against Man City, but Marcus Senesi will be one of the very best defenders in the game. He costs 5 million, and Dan Burn will not make it into the squad. The same goes for any other Newcastle player, but you can still include one of their options. I just wouldn't double up on the Toon Army, as I've said multiple times. Even though they were very promising defensively and kept many clean sheets, I felt like they would maybe have a downward spiral, and it has been even worse than I imagined after a 3-1 loss against West Ham on Sunday. But the last defender is just a budget option. You can go for Rodon, Goodmanson, Alderete, who should be back by Game Week 11 or 12, or Mukiele, who does make the cut, but Sunderland are near the bottom of the FDR, the fixture difficulty rating, until Game Week 16, and as a result, I wouldn't look to start any Sunderland assets, including Mukiele, over the next couple of weeks. But what he offers is this sort of 5th option in this defensive line, and he could be 3rd on your bench for the next couple of weeks. But Mukiele can get DEFCON, and Sunderland have been quite surprising and competitive in the big game, so they can get some huge results over the coming weeks. But ultimately, I wouldn't start him over James, Munoz, Gabriel. If for those of you who go for Timber and Virgil van Dijk, long term you certainly would favour those 2 over Mukiele as well, but they're also far more expensive, and at this price and below, I don't think anyone is better than Mukiele at this moment in time. Declan Rice is closing the gap on Antoine Semenyo at the top of the midfielder charts, and he has been outstanding this season for the Gunners with his set-piece threat, and even from open play, he can give you defensive contributions from time to time, and also scoring goals like he did against Burnley with that fantastic header. So Declan Rice is going to be an all-round midfielder, and his price tag is really appealing at 6.8 million. He offers far better value than Bukayo Saka, who is more explosive, and is going to get more goal contributions over the course of the season. But Declan Rice will be quite competitive, and I think he's worth including at this particular price point, especially for those who want to go for a different sort of structure, go for Erling Haaland up front, some cheap midfielders, and maybe go big at the back, because this season defenders have been on another level. So investing more money in that position is certainly viable, and that's why there are a lot of triple ups in the Arsenal defence running around with Munoz, maybe Reece James, Virgil van Dijk, etc. And there are other options where that came from. But the second midfielder in this team is Bryan Mbeumo, who is also right up there for points scored amongst midfielders. He is fourth behind Caicedo, Rice, and Antoine Semenyo. And Mbeumo blanked against Nottingham Forest, but he's taken set pieces, particularly those corner kicks, and from open play, he offers the biggest goal threat in that Man United team. I still like Bruno Fernandes, and ultimately they're the only two United assets I would consider, but Bryan Mbeumo would still be above him, and he's significantly cheaper. The only downside is he won't be on penalties. After Ruben Amorim's comments a few weeks ago, with Bruno Fernandes missing another penalty, he was basically backing the Portuguese maestro to remain on those penalty duties. So I don't think Bryan Mbeumo will take them unless Fernandes isn't on the pitch, which is extremely rare. But the third midfielder is Moises Caicedo, and I still like Enzo Fernandez. His ceiling will be even higher than Caicedo, generally speaking. He's also on penalties whilst Cole Palmer is out due to injury, and that should be for another couple of weeks, maybe even until December, depending on how he recovers from his injury. But Caicedo can give you DEFCON very consistently. There has been a decrease in his output in the last couple of matches, but he did secure them against Tottenham Hotspur, and also that really crucial assist to give the winner. Joao Pedro scored it, he missed some big chances himself, and Tottenham were thoroughly outplayed on the day. Now they bounced back in the Champions League with a massive win over Copenhagen, and Chelsea, will see how they do against Karabag. At the time of this recording, it is on the Wednesday morning, and it will be published for all viewers on the Thursday, with channel members and patrons getting early access as usual. But Caicedo is fixture proof. It is Wolves at home and Burnley away next, so you could argue that the DEFCON potential is slightly lower, but I still think Caicedo is a brilliant option at 6 million, and he's adding more goals to his game. With 3 for the season so far. They are low XG shots because predominantly they're from outside the box and they're thunderous strikes, but Moises Caicedo is still worth including. There are plenty of options at a similar price tag like Minter. You could still consider someone like Granit Xhaka as well if you need extra funds for the rest of this 50-man squad, but Moises Caicedo would still be right up there, and there is a reason why he's in the podium of the highest scoring midfielders in FPL. Now, Ndiaye is still a quality option. He is yellow flag, but I covered his injury in my Transits podcast, and David Moyes said they should be fine. He just felt something, and it's a bit of cramp. So Ndiaye should be available against Fulham at home, and he's by far the best off his asset, which I've said repeatedly, even when Grealish was the one getting the assist and also all the attention after winning the Player of the Month award. Ndiaye can also score DEFCON on a regular basis, so he has many avenues to points. I would like him to get more assists, but that ultimately depends on the quality of the finishers around him, and the likes of Beto and Tierno Barry are simply not good enough, and as good as Grealish and Dewsbury Hall can be, they're also not quality or reliable finishers. So Ndiaye will score most goals for that Everton team. He's also on penalties, so I think he's the best option that the Toffees have to offer. But the fifth and final midfielder is Antoine Semenyo. So essentially, this midfield is the top 5 highest scoring midfielders in the game so far this season. But I still like Bukayo Saka, Bruno Fernandes, Ismaila Sarr, but there is a reason why I haven't gone for Ismaila Sarr in this Wildcard podcast. You might want to replace one of these players with Sarr, and for example, if you are struggling for funds, then it might be worth selling Semenyo for Ismaila Sarr, but just be mindful of tripping up on Crystal Palace overall, which I'll do so, as you'll see in the forward section. Antoine Semenyo has dropped off in recent matches, but after Aston Villa away, he has great fixtures on paper, and I would back him to get some consistency like we saw at the beginning of the campaign. He was very frustrating last season, and sometimes I would bench him in the more difficult fixtures, and he would just blank and not really offer anything in the plum games on paper. But I think Antoine Semenyo is worth holding on to for those that had him for a very long time, like myself. For those that haven't invested yet, and he costs 8.1 million at this point, then you could definitely argue there's better value to be found elsewhere, and you could go against the template by going against him with an Ismaila Sarr or a lower owned asset like Enzo Fernandez. But Antoine Semenyo does make it into this team just to offer more balance and diversity into this squad and covering different squads offensively. But I still think you could consider Ismaila Sarr as a replacement for him if you're really struggling for funds. But it's now time to unveil the front three for the best wildcard team. Jean-Philippe Mateta had a poor start to the season, but it all changed with that hat-trick against Bournemouth, where he still missed some huge opportunities, but his stats are only bettered by Erling Haaland amongst forwards. He has incredible underlying stats with over 15 big chances. The XG is nearing 10, so he is underperforming still, but the rate of chances Crystal Palace create, and with the vast majority of them falling to Jean-Philippe Mateta, he is the best Crystal Palace attacker overall. Ismaila Sarr might offer better value, but there isn't much to separate those two in general, and you could still go for a Crystal Palace offensive double-up, like I mentioned before. But Jean-Philippe Mateta is in the podium of the highest scoring forwards, only behind Joao Pedro, and of course at number one, it's unsurprisingly Erling Haaland. He is the best premium option, he's the most template pick now, and Man City have poor fixtures on paper for the next two, but I still think Erling Haaland is right up there for the captaincy, even against a decent Liverpool side who have been improving with the last couple of matches. So that could be a bit more difficult for Erling Haaland, but you wouldn't put it past him to score another goal, get maximum bonus points, and even a brace isn't out of the question. So I do like this front line already, and it does require a budget forward like Isidore, who I think has been brilliant up until now, but I wouldn't buy him in as covered in my transfer tips. There's also Danny Welbeck, who you might want to consider, but I think the best budget forward is Igor Thiago, who is fourth for the most points scored amongst forwards. He has produced 47 points. His ownership remains under 10%, so he's a massive differential. And I think Brentford in general have been fairly competitive, especially in the last couple of weeks. And Igor Thiago is the best FPL asset they have to offer. He's also on penalties, which is a massive boost. And this front line also looks really encouraging. There are no attacking double-ups. And overall, you've only got the Arsenal defensive double-up with Raya and Gabriel. Let me discuss the starting 11 and the captaincy, which is very open for Gameweek 11. There will be benching headaches, not just in Gameweek 11, but also in future match days. Raya will be in goal against Sunderland away, and a double up defensively with Gabriel as well. Reece James and Munoz complete the defensive line with Mbeumo, Ndai, Semenyo and Rice. Mateta, Haaland and Thiago would complete the starting 11 with Dubravka, Caicedo, Senesi and Mukiele on the bench. I would have qualms about benching Caicedo against Wolves. That would be my only concern, and you might want to start him over Igor Thiago, but when you're comparing a penalty taker and also facing a Newcastle side who are so inconsistent, particularly on their travels, I would just about go for Igor Thiago right now. That could well change, of course, in a couple of days' time, and there isn't really much to separate these players in general. There is 0.1 million in the bank with my budget, which is obviously 100.4 million overall, and the expected points is 53.8, which seems quite low, but I look at Gameweek 11 and it does seem like the sort of match day that could be quite low scoring in general. You've got some top teams facing each other like Man City and Liverpool, and even Arsenal won't have it easy against Sunderland away. Now, you could start Caicedo over Rice as well, but that ultimately can go either way no matter how you go about it. And with the captaincy, I will show you the top 10 captaincy list in future videos like my team selection, but I think Erling Haaland might still be number one, and that's something that I just hate about FPL at the moment because the other premiums simply aren't doing it. They're either injured like Cole Palmer, Bukayo Saka's also had some injuries over the course of the season, or they're just underperforming. Mohamed Salah's been getting back to a decent level with 16 points out of the last two game weeks, but that still pales in comparison to Erling Haaland, who just keeps on outscoring everybody else. Gabriel is someone who has been very competitive with the captaincy, and towards the beginning of the season, it was Antoine Semenyo, but Erling Haaland remains at the very top of the FPL charts, and you have to have a really good reason to go against him when it comes to the armband. I'm not saying you can't pick your moments and go against him in general, because you can still do well without Haaland in your team, let alone captaining him. But in terms of finding that reliability and that sort of confidence that this player will score, I can't really say that with any other player right now. Brian Mbeumo had a short patch for 3 game weeks offering consistency, but then he blanked against Nottingham Forest, so it's quite difficult to find that sort of reliable and consistent option with the high ceiling to rival Haaland and better him in certain weeks. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Who would you captain for Gameweek 11? I think Bukayo Saka could be quite underrated. Mikel Merino playing up front, he scored a brace against Slavia Prague, so that could be considered as well. The likes of Victor Gyökeres and Gabriel Martinelli will be out until after the international break, but Merino could still be a nice short-term punt, and if you're wildcarding in Gameweek 12, that could be a perfect sort of transfer for the upcoming deadline. After building the best wildcard team for Gameweek 11, these are my scoreline predictions for the upcoming deadline. Tottenham Hotspur 2, Manchester United 1, Everton 1, Fulham 1, West Ham 3, Burnley 2, Sunderland 0, Arsenal 2, Chelsea 3, Wolves 1, Aston Villa 2, Bournemouth 2, Brentford 1, Newcastle 1, Crystal Palace 2, Brighton 1, Nottingham Forest 1, Leeds United 0, and Man City 1, Liverpool 1. Those are my scoreline predictions. Let me know yours down in the comment section below, and which teams do you back to keep a clean sheet, and maybe there are certain clubs that you like to invest in for the long term. I think Arsenal, Crystal Palace would be two of those teams. Even Chelsea are near the top of the FDR for the next 6 game weeks, despite some tough tests like Arsenal in Game Week 13. Thank you very much for watching this video and listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it or find insightful, then like this video, subscribe to my channel, and also hit the notification bell so you're always up to date on my content, both FPL and UCL Fantasy, which I'll cover until the end of the season. If you want to see a predicted lineups, then let's get this video to over 150 likes and close in on new goals like 38k on YouTube. A big shout out to all the members, patrons, super chatters, and those that gifted memberships as we hit 37,000 on Tuesday. You're massively appreciated. Follow me on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky, Dylan RCM, and check all the links in the description for my Patreon and the championships. For links to my videos, amongst many other perks, my Discord server, the FPL League, and Spotify can also be found in the description. I'll see you very soon for my team selection ahead of Game Week 11. The same goes for Saturday for the next deadline stream.